When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid.
Hi, welcome online rebels and philosophers from Toronto Philosophy Meetup and sister meetup groups. We are here to brainstorm and a little bit of a storm about ADHD. This is Coach's Talk, and we are here with Dalya Hullu today. We'll be talking about ADHD. It's going to be an empathy conversation. We'll let Dalya give her own perspective on ADHD and what she does. We'll also have time for comments and questions. Please use raise hands button if you like, or if you like, you can raise your actual hands too. So Dalya, welcome.
Hi, Eva. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Dalya?
I'm good.
So nice to have you here. Before I ask you how you would like to introduce yourself, first I would like to shortly explain why we could just switch to another language all of a sudden with you. because it seems like we were both born and raised in Turkey, Istanbul, and we lived in the same cities, Yeşilköy, for some while, but we never met. And the way we met is through ADD Coach Academy, and we met through online meetings. And now you're in Florida, I'm in Toronto, but we speak in Turkish with each other. So please, dear friends, if you feel like you don't understand what we are speaking about, probably because we switched to Turkish, that happens with our ADHD brain sometimes. So Dalya, welcome.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, Eva. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's true what you said. Sometimes I don't realize I switch between languages.
Yeah.
Turkish being my native language and yours too.
Mm-hmm. So how would you like to describe yourself today, Dalya?
Okay, so I'm a mother of 3 kids. I live in Miami, USA for the last 6 years now with my family. I mean, my husband and my kids. And after I moved to the States, I went, like you mentioned, to the same school, the ADD Coach Academy. And that's where I became a family and ADHD coach. And currently I'm working in a school with families, with parents and kids, children, in the school setting. I help them with their ADHD, and I also teach them executive functioning tools. And yeah, that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could tell you why I started doing ADHD coaching. It's a little funny story.
Mm-hmm.
So back in Turkey, when my son was 6 years old, I got this phone call from the school saying, your son is being aggressive and he's hitting other kids, so you better come to the school. So the next day I hurried up and I went to the school, and I found myself sitting in front of a counselor saying, your son might have ADHD. You might better take him to, you know how they are in Turkey. They diagnose you right away. So you might. So she said, you might better have him evaluated somewhere. So that's how the whole thing started. I was very, frustrated, very worried as a mom, and I didn't even know what ADHD meant. So that's how my journey started. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So we are both ADHD and family coach, and today will be a lot about ADHD. We'll be sharing some personal information and some small, very easy to catch up ADHD tips. So this is another thing, sometimes like ADHD minds really catch up with things when we see with shapes or letters. And I would like to maybe start with what ADHD is and what ADHDer is, because ADHDer is where we wanna maybe kind of start. So I'll just put this here. So Dalya, how would you describe ADHD in your own perspective as a family and ADHD coach?
Yes, ADHD. I'm gonna call it a funny disorder because it it has so many symptoms. So you can have two very different people with very different traits, and they still, they could both have the ADHD, but they would come out as very different to the outside world. So for me, ADHD, the way I live it in my family, that's pretty much the way I described it. My husband is one kind of ADHD where you see a very hyper man in his adult age. He's sometimes very impatient, but at the same time very good during crisis, and very creative, and with many other symptoms. But then you take my son, he is totally different. He's more on the aggressive side, more impulsive, and as a kid you see him being more hyper. He cannot sit somewhere, but he's able to hyper focus at the same time. Like if it's something interests him, he can stay focused for maybe 3 hours, 4 hours. And then I have my daughter who is a teenager. With her it's more daydreaming, and the task initiation is a problem. Sustained attention is a problem. It's very hard to stay on task. So we have different sides of ADHD in each person, and that's and ADHD in total, we call it a disorder, but I think it also has many, many positive sides to it. We see it more and more, and the whole ADHD crowd is talking about it. Somehow, almost all ADHD people are very creative, and they are very intuitive, and they are very good at crisis, and that's what we do on a daily basis. We concentrate on the positive.
Yeah, as coaches, as family and ADHD perspective coaches, like we want to all mention that it's ADHD but, or it's ADHD however. If we want to open up ADHD and really understand what those four letters stand for, attention deficit hyperactivity, I don't like saying the word disability. I like calling dimension. I like calling that, because it's all different kind of dimensions of attention hyperactivity. So what's happening? We all want to say after ADHD, we all want to say something good, as if it is a problematic world. Why? What makes ADHD a problematic start, let's say?
What I think, because people who have ADHD, they don't come out as so much problematic, or they don't seem to have a disorder. What they appear to the world, the way they appear to the world is they either seem lazy, or they either seem, maybe unorganized. All these words, they weren't describing a disorder. But there's an excuse for it. There's a reason why people cannot start doing their work. There is with ADHD, I mean, and there is a reason why they are unorganized, and there is a reason why they forget things. So that since the whole world looked at some people and they weren't diagnosed with ADHD and they were thought to be just lazy or forgetful or disorganized, we kind of, I think, needed an explanation to the world saying, hey, I have ADHD, you don't see it, but there's a reason behind it, the way I act this way. And there are some good parts to it. I'm proud to have it. It's okay. I can mingle. I can be in the society. I can be next to you. I can go to the same schools. I'm not, my disability shouldn't stop me from doing things, because I believe, honestly, ADHD comes with its gifts too. I mean, it's not just a disorder. It definitely comes with its gifts. So.
Yeah, and I know you work with especially like elementary school kids who are really you make these kids able to understand what is really happening in their brain. Speaking of brain, I work with children and young adults too, and because I am an ADHDer, maybe we'll talk about that too. But speaking of reality, I use this brain model a lot. It helps me, at least for me or for my young clients, to really understand I have a brain and some things are happening. I learn a little different than other people. So ADHD is actually taking place in the brain, right?
Yeah.
And can we say like this, I call it again upstairs, like this part of the brain, especially with children. Can we say because of the maybe a little bit of a delayed development of executive functioning area, like thinking, designing, time management? What else would you like to add?
Yeah, it's the frontal lobe. All our executive functioning skills are originated from the frontal lobe. Yeah, so it's more the frontal lobe. It's here. It's right here. So that's where they originate from. And they are like a total of 8 to 9 skills. Everybody separates them differently, but I usually separate them into 8 different skills. And those skills, they are up, from 3 to 8 year late in development in ADHD kids and adults. So imagine a 7-year-old kid who, like, in his or her developments is already like 3 years late in some of the developments. So it was not there, for a task initiation. Imagine all the classmates starting an activity on time when the teacher says so, and this kid is having hard time to sitting at it and just starting the task because his brain development for task initiation is just not there.
So it's like being hungry. It's a kind of like a physical thing happening in the brain, like connections are really not matching about maybe the emotions or will to start things or focus. If they are bored, like they can't really handle the boredom until something else happens.
Exactly. That it's a good thing you mentioned that. Another name for ADHD, if you remember, in our school they used to say it's the deficit of boredom. So if there is the interest in place, then the person can definitely give itself to it, can start the task initiation, even though if he has a task initiation problem. He can sustain his attention, although he has that problem too. He can even finish the task, because if once we are interested, this brain of ours with ADHD, sometimes it can become hyper focused. And in hyper focus, it's a place where we are, it's like in meditation where we are so focused, we're almost one with God. I hope it's okay I mention God, but it could be spirit, whatever you want to call it. But it's a place where we feel we are when we are meditating. So in that you know, in that place, if we're interested, we get to that place, and once we're in that place, we actually achieve a lot. We are creative, we are, you know, we are all that we want to be, we are successful. And so
Is that the time when I was like 8 years old? I was not able to write anything on my notebook, but I could just focus for hours for a coloring page. And when my mom said, well, you do that, you do coloring as for like hours, but just for a couple of sentences, you can't do that. So is it that thing like you can do it if you want to? But why don't you do your homework for 10 minutes instead of...
Yeah, you can do it if you want to. That's the sentence many ADDers hear all the time, but that's not the case.
The coloring was not a chore, or it was not a job for me. It was my passion, and I would be lost in coloring. I would forget the time. I would forget my hunger. I would even forget that I will have to go eat, or my own even physiological needs, that if I am focusing, it's really, I'm at another dimension. That's why I like using the word dimension here.
That's a perfect description of hyperfocus. Exactly. That's how you feel once you're in one. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask, open up for questions and comments, give a break for you, Dalya. But before, I'd like to first mention, okay, now ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Although we don't really want to call it a disorder, I like to call it dimensions. So this is the name of the situation. However, when we say ADHDer, would you like to go ahead and like, what do we mean when we say ADHDer?
Well, for me, if you're asking my opinion, I usually call them ADDer, not ADHDer,
okay.
but yeah, that doesn't matter. You can call them both, you know, because sometimes the hyperactivity is there, sometimes it's not. But ADDers are people who are, you know, dealing with whatever ADHD brings to you, whatever, you know, dealing with executive functioning problems, dealing with all those, you know, challenges.
And maybe I like mentioning with my clients or coaching partners, like, we don't want to, just like they said to you in Turkey, like in the school setting, that your child might have ADHD, that would be super illegal and problematic here. So you don't want to ask anybody, like, do you have ADHD or did you take pills? Please, let's not do that. In any part of the world, let's not do that. But it's we're not allowed to talk about that if parents are not choosing to share it with us, especially in school settings. Definitely. And like, again, if we call it ADHDer, it doesn't mean that that person is diagnosed with ADHD, but it could be like, I am involved with ADHD. Either like I have a family member, or I am working with people with ADHD. So because some people really don't want to mention that they have ADHD or they are diagnosed with ADHD. So calling somebody ADHDer is kind of like a fun way, and not taking it personal way of saying, I'm involved, I have a person in my life that is involved with ADHD. So that's kind of like an invention that us ADHD coaches, I think, invented. Now I'd like to ask our participants, would anybody like to ask any questions, or anybody have comments? I think I'm trying to unmute you all. Okay.
Well,
Dee? Go ahead. We can hear you.
Sorry, I was just switching to my laptop.
Okay, we can hear you perfectly. Welcome.
Not sure why it's...
Dee, we can hear you.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll just put my video on because
Okay.
it's better. Yeah,
Hi,
I
Dee.
actually.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I've seen you before in the other meetings.
Mhm.
I think this when we talk about I don't think you necessarily said the word stigma, but one of the last points you made about people not wanting to admit that they, or just say that they have ADHD, or I don't care telling people that I have it. The only issue is I sometimes feel like I should it's not worth talking about. It's not even worth mentioning because depending on like whether the person or not even believes that it is a thing. I mean, we know the great big example of what's that actor's name? The what's his name? Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Right? You guys remember that that famous interview he had with Matt Lawyer, was it? Where he's
Would you
stop
remind
pumping
us?
these kids.
Would you remind
Yeah,
us?
he was basically
The one,
yeah, sorry, I think lag.
the one on Oprah where he was jumping around on the sofa and stuff like.
No, not that one. So he
Oh,
was
there's another one.
being interviewed. Yeah, there's I've seen the Oprah one, but no, not when he was going crazy about Katie Holmes. No, this was a different one when he was on the morning show, the Today Show, I think it was, with Matt Lawyer. Do you guys know that one? Where he was talking about basically he wanted to bring attention to how he doesn't like the fact that kids and people in general, but I think he then focused on kids, that don't pump them with medicine, he was basically saying. And he was saying that that ADHD is like, it's not a thing that is like basically serious. I think that was his point. He's like, it's not something that we need to manage with medicine. Now, I don't know if he misspoke, if he was saying that, we can manage it with therapy or something like that. I don't know. But what he said was it's a very common thing that people believe with ADHD. He didn't say something like Ava when you sorry, I don't know if it's Eva or Ava, when you mentioned that your mom said, what we've all heard, us with ADHD, we've all heard it. Oh, well, you can definitely focus, it's just only when you want to, only when it interests you, right? He didn't mention something like that, but he didn't need to, because people already know that's so like that in their minds dismisses the whole ADHD thing.
Yeah.
And for him to like say on national TV, international TV, that we don't need medicine. And actually a lot of people, if you've seen the studies that other people have come out with, they say we don't need we don't need the medicine. Well, then tell me how I was able to excel in school after I got medicated. I went from failing, waiting with a scholarship. Tell me how that's possible. Failing, other than gym and art class.
Of course, yeah.
It's in my mind, it doesn't make sense. And then I was just on the phone with my friend actually yesterday, and I said to her, oh, I'm attending this online like meeting thing, and it's about ADHD. And she said, oh yeah, that's right, you have it. And I'm like, yeah, she's a nurse. She's been a nurse for 7 years. And there were things that I told her yesterday, like I mentioned something, and I said, there are a lot of things that people who don't have ADHD, or who even don't have ADHD to a certain level, that they just will not understand. We can explain it to them, but they might forget it because it's not significant to them. And I said, there are a lot of things that I didn't mention that you probably might not know, even as a nurse. And she said, things like what? And then I told her, I said, there's never a time where my mind is empty. There's never a time where I'm not thinking at least 3 things, even while, and she said, what about when you're reading a book? And I said, no, even when I'm reading a book, I'm thinking, yeah, I might be reading that paragraph, but I have to reread one sentence, even if I say it out loud, because I'm thinking something else. I'm saying that sentence out loud, and it can be a very simple sentence, but I'll read it again and again and again if I'm not focused. And she's like, that's so strange. What about just the whole story? Like, you're so immersed in a book sometimes, right? And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't say that I am. I can't say that I have been. And like, it depends, but no, at the same time. And then I said, I guess the only time is music. And then she asked me actually about meditation. And I said, meditating, it's taken me about 2 years to finally start having that focus, but it's still not. Anyways, I've been talking for a while, but the last point I want to make is the unfortunate fact that girls are they're not diagnosed with ADHD as much, because good behavior is seen as, oh, well, maybe you don't have ADHD. For example, when I was in high school, and I was diagnosed pretty late. I was diagnosed because I had like anxiety, and so I was seeing a therapist. So my school sent me to this clinic here, and then that person, through many sessions of talk therapy, he's like, I'm gonna set you up with a doctor for actually anxiety. And when that doctor saw me, he said he wanted to see my report cards. I was already in grade 12 at this point, last year of high school. And then he said, also bring in your mother. So my mom and I go in with all of my report cards. And he didn't focus on the marks. He knew the marks already. He didn't focus on the marks. He focused on the comments that the teachers had made over all these report cards, 3 a year, and then in high school, twice a year. And he's like, it's so obvious that you have ADHD.
I guess it was, what was it? She could do bad. Like, we know that she can do much better. Like, she's a very smart kid.
She distracts other kids. She has the potential. It was always like, she has great potential, but she doesn't focus. She doesn't, she's careless with this. She talks too much. She distracts other people. And for some reason, the teachers talked more about me distracting other kids than me being distracted myself. So that's just an interesting thing that I thought. But here's the part that I was getting to. Within those report cards, I didn't know, because I was young at that time. When I was in grade 2, I think, and then again in grade 1 or 3 or 2 or 4, those grades. Twice I had my school had a person come in and test me for, like, kind of gauge and see if I had ADHD. This was in the report cards. There was an actual separate sheet from that person. And it was made, it was like determined that I didn't have it. And it talked a lot about, oh, I have such good behavior. And that's one of the things that's one of the reasons why they say that girls are less diagnosed with ADHD, and wrongfully so, because of good behavior, or they might be diagnosed later in life. My brother, who doesn't have ADHD, by the way, very apparent once he kind of, grew up, he was tested like several times, and they were like adamant, no, he for sure has ADHD, like, most certainly. And he didn't have ADHD. So here was me, good behavior, have ADHD, was immediately saw the benefits of the medicine in my marks. Even my manager where I worked, she even said, hey, you don't have to write things down anymore. Like, that's pretty cool. And then there's my brother who had you know, these people say, no, for sure he has ADHD, even when they tested him over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And he didn't have ADHD.
I think, thank
and that,
you.
You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very insightful, and I think you made a good starting point to where I know Dalya will be talking about next. And
thank you. I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you. Thank you. Very honest. And these are not easy to share because we're talking about our years of failing. And I'd like to just read a comment here because I can with my focusing now. Tom says, I was diagnosed when I was 34. That's too late. So I think, Dalya, now you see us as like elementary kids. Can you see all these adults around talking as like your students and elementary kids, and what amazing awareness and witnessing do you provide for the students in the school setting, and how important it is to have an ADHD coach at the school? Because I know you have amazing experience and you do, I'll say, miracles with kids who have ADHD. So, Dalya.
Yeah, I mean, what, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. It's Day, I believe, or D. Anyways, what?
Yeah,
Day.
Yeah.
Day. Okay. What she was describing, it's yes, very, very typical. Honestly, I have a daughter who is a junior right now, and she's very recently been diagnosed as well. So I kind of know what you went through, and you're right, because girls are usually daydreamers and they're well behaved and they're socially more in place. Therefore, they get diagnosed later because the teachers, they don't suspect anything. You know, they usually think that, you know, the usual things that you should try harder, that maybe you should talk less, or that you should pay more attention, but it's harder to notice things. And with kids, Eva, at school, of course, they are lucky, and I'm lucky to see them when they're only, you know, 7 years to 11 years old, because the younger you create the awareness, the better for a person. But there isn't such a thing as being diagnosed too late. Honestly, we were talking about people before, like being diagnosed even at 60, because it brings you to terms with who you are. And it's, I think it's a great acceptance to have a diagnosis if you need one. And once, you know, you start treating it, and treating doesn't only mean taking medication, but taking medication really helps in some cases. So it's either taking medication or getting the support you need from a coach, from a psychologist. It's a whole support system. I don't think one works by itself. So you have to have everything in place, whatever you need. And it's different for each case again. So you need to start seeing a doctor, and from there on you have to, you know, see what you need. And ADHD coach comes in handy, because what we do is we help our, we cannot call them our patients since we're not doctors, but, you know, we help our ADDers by being there for them every day, and so day by day. So we are helping them with daily challenges, little things that you know you cannot wait to go and see a doctor again. But a coach is there for that person, you know, most of the time, to help with organization, with daily things, just remembering to take your things to school, with planning, with prioritization, all those skills that we have to use daily.
Can I ask a question, Dalya? So as an ADHD and family coach who is working in a school setting, not as a teacher, as an ADHD coach, so you are hired to serve as ADHD coach.
Yes, I am.
And this is a private school. hopefully this will be in public schools when they are open. let's hope. Let's hope. So your job is what, and what do the students get out of meeting with the coach at the school system?
Well, this is how it goes. Let's say a student is being diagnosed with ADHD outside school. They are being evaluated. Or they're not being diagnosed with ADHD, but teachers, they're seeing lots of executive functioning challenges in the classroom. Meaning, they already know by now what executive functioning challenges are, the teachers. So they are coming to me and they're saying, do you want to evaluate this kid as a coach because he seems to not be able to start his work on time. He seems not to be organized. He keeps losing his papers. He doesn't bring them from home or from home to, school. And all these sorts of things, they all point towards ADHD or executive functioning problems, as we call it in school, since, we also have kids without a diagnosis. So that's how I start seeing them. I first evaluate them. I go into classes. I observe every single one of them. And I also have questionnaires for the parents, for the teachers. I try to talk to as many people as I can about the child. And as I gather my information, I decide which executive functioning challenges there are. So then I take the student out of the classroom during the school day for a 45-minute session, or if it's a younger kid, like first grade and, first and second grade, depending on the kid, I might take them 25 minutes twice a week. And so I take them out, and what we do is we create awareness. We talk with them about, the problem, what the teacher sees, what the parents, they see. And so we start talking about it and we try to create awareness, and that takes some time. That's almost the hardest part of it all, because the student doesn't come to you on their own wishes. They're just put there by the parent or by the teacher. They're saying, you have to go and see Mrs. Hullu, which is me. So they come to my session and we talk about it. I try to make it obvious and we discuss it, and I try to explain to them that they are not alone. I'm there for them, and they're not the only person, going through this, and how we can overcome it, and how I can teach them tools, and how we should try together. And that's how we start working. And I teach them tools, we play games, and so on.
Thank you, Dalya. I know Kevin has an experience to share, but I'll just like to ask now, is it that young kids' experience to say, that's why that's happening with me? Do you get that? Because that's a treasure.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
It's the light bulb effect. Definitely. Yeah, it happens a lot. And that's actually when we start improving. Yeah. Because before they realize what's going on in their own body, in their own mind, and they, how do you say this? Like they become their own alibi. They see the moment as an outsider, objectively. And they're like, oh, this is what you were talking about. That's it. Aha. But then they realize, and
so appreciate that perspective, Dalya. And now Kevin has sharings. Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh yeah, I have quite a long experience in a way. Like I am older, right? And I was diagnosed quite fairly late, but like I had the same problems that I think it was when she was talking right back in school. But I was in that era where it really wasn't even a thing. I don't know, like I'd never heard ADD when I was in elementary school. And then after that, the whole wave of, it's like every kid any boy who has, an attention problem in class, they, give him Ritalin, right? And there's that whole stigma around that. And my son, and now we're talking about 10 or 12 years ago, when he was in grade 6, grade 7. A teacher suddenly said, hey, we think he has ADD, so let's get him diagnosed or whatever, like go out and do it. And it just seemed kind of odd out of the blue. All of a sudden now he's got this problem. And I did have him diagnosed, had a diagnostic test done, and they sort of considered him borderline. And there's that sort of cliche of, well, is he really ADD, or is he just an impatient boy who wants to go out and play rather than sit in the class? So we did a few things for him, but really didn't get into diagnosing him. So I was about 42 at the time. And then, of course, you start to say, and there was even, finger pointing at me saying, hey, you've got ADD. Did you ever think of that? And it was just sort of right at this strange juncture in my life where the relationship I was in, things were not going well. And, just there was a lot of upheaval in that. And I ended up, it was sort of like I was at a crossroads where I was going to like look into ADD more or just go to a therapist. So I went to a therapist, and I went into therapy for quite a number of years, and that was very beneficial. And it's kind of hard to say, like, and he, like, that therapy kind of like, it didn't really enter the realm of his approach or thinking, right? Especially as an adult. But in a way, I always knew that I did, and I had a lot of coping mechanisms, and I did pretty well, and I agree, like, in terms of, creativity and talent, I did manage, I think, to, cope with, some of the issues like that I was aware of. But where it really kind of went off the rails for me, it was kind of very unusual. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, no, less than that, maybe 3 years ago, I took a French cooking class, of all things. And it was like, maybe it was my age or whatever. It was just like overstimulating, like just totally. And I would notice that, like, I go to like Home Depot or Canadian Tire, and all the smells and colors that would kind of overwhelm me, like I just feel, I'm sure you know what I mean by that, where you cook, getting early dementia or, something weird. So I went to the doctor, and she goes, and she had no idea about my past experience or diagnosis. Oh, and I should say, when I was about 42, a doctor said, I think maybe you have a little depression, but then I think you do have ADD. And I did not an official diagnostic test, but I did one, and it did sort of verify that. I just went a different direction. But then now for the last 3 years, and now I'm, in my 50s, I did take on taking medication, Concerta. And, it's sort of like, I felt like I'm unraveling layers of trying to understand myself, that the therapy was helpful, but then now I moved on, and that now I can see some of the attention issues and things like that. And even at my age, it's still been beneficial. It's frustrating. Like, I wish I had, maybe as a kid been diagnosed more, something, whatever. But I'm here now, and I've changed in some ways to kind of bring me to this point where I can look at that part of things. And like, I found the medication not perfect, but definitely beneficial. And it's reflected in my work, in the work that I do now. So I was kind of thinking that it's like never too late to really look into it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. What do you say, Dalya? Thank you. Very honest and open.
Yeah.
Sharing.
Thank you for sharing. I couldn't agree more. Definitely. Some people describe it as a cloud, like coming, lifting up in front of their eyes when they take the medication.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely, it's hard to find the right medication. You have to keep trying, but once a medication starts working for you, I think it's definitely worth it.
Like I would say, I also work, my journey with ADHD, with even my own ADHD, started with brain training. So I met brain training before medication. And I have to say, that's how I am super convinced, like, yeah, I understand and I believe in the benefit of medication. It's like you need to see better, and it's just like, I know I will be reading better with my glasses on. So it's that kind of important, maybe at a stage of the life. If you're diagnosed with ADHD, of course, it's very important to go with the professional help. And a coach can't diagnose ADHD. It has to go through your legal, medical advisor's path. However, like brain training is a huge, another way to really understand whatever you do with your own self-awareness and self-being. And I think this will be very familiar for you, Kevin, and just really understand that ADHD is living with me. It's changing with me. It's because your experience with the smell and cooking and that stage of your life, how things, cooking and things really shifted, means like I can see your brain in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in fact, cooking is my hyperactive, my hyper-focus activity, my main thing. Like it's like the thing about cooking is that I can, like I might be easily distracted and all I do is like I switch what I cook, right? Like one day I'm like, well, I don't want to, I want to cook Asian food today. I'm going to switch over and, cook African food, or like, I don't know, whatever thing happens to like catch my fancy or, my attention.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say about people's perceptions and that, or whether like, I was actually going to ask you at the beginning, like if in Turkey, whether they actually view ADD as a real thing, right? And like, I don't know the Turkish culture, and it is, right? I can, from what you got into that description, but I know lots of people, like, I think it was somebody had said, like in France, it's not a thing. They feel like it doesn't exist. And what I say to people like that, like I generally, like, I don't tell my work. I don't like, it's not really there's a lot of stigma around it, and people don't, like, I never look for accommodation because, they workplaces, they may say they do, but they don't really believe it. Like, it's just like you're lazy.
It's 3 o'clock.
So, but even myself, I was, cynical, like not cynical, but, doubtful about it. And like with my son and that, but to me, it's like as an adult, the difference between being a child and an adult is that I can decide for myself. And I decided to try the medication and it worked. It helped, right? It improved things, whether you believe it or not, I don't care. Like other people, I feel like I have some, whether you call it deficits, and I do believe it's a gift as well, but it has helped me with some of my my deficits. And I actually, and the other thing I was going to add is that I feel that a lot of it is internal, how your thought processes are, and how you're, like, I agree with Day about thinking 5 million things at the same time. And that as a result of the medication and just working on things, and I feel better inside, and that I'm able to focus. And like my wife, she kind of knew me before I started taking medication, and she knows me now. And she said that, like, I've asked her a few times, she really didn't necessarily see a difference in me, although I felt a big difference inside. Okay. And to me, I don't care about anybody else, like I'm helping myself.
So
that's
thank you, Kevin.
I look at it. And no matter how old you are, you can evolve.
I hear you are surging and really going deep I will say maybe rebelling inside to find peace. And Dalya here, like, if we wanna talk, see things in the brain's perspective, again, whatever is good for an ADHD brain is still good for non-ADHD brain. Can we say that? Like, because like the kids in your school, maybe they don't have ADHD, or sometimes we don't even have to know if people, our students, are diagnosed with ADHD or not. But whatever, how we break things for ADHDer mind, it's always good for any kind of thinking because it brings more self-awareness.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it diagnoses, you know, sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't help.
Yep.
For a kid, doesn't mean much. Sometimes the parents need the label, sometimes they don't even want to hear it. And same for the adult, you know, it's each person have their own way, but the way we approach things, yeah, definitely, like the tools we're teaching, doesn't matter whether you're called an ADDer or not, if you have ADHD or not, because we're teaching skills, and skills cannot be learned with the medication, or you know, in it, like any skills. How can you learn a skill? By practicing it. Somebody has to show you how to do it, and then you just have to keep practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, ADHD coaching, the way we approach everyone, no matter what they have, doesn't matter, on executive function, you know, the tools can help. And but I'm not sure if you said the medication helps a non-ADHD brain too. Did you say that?
Oh no,
You didn't mean that.
I would never say that. I mean, I meant,
Well,
it
I mean,
meant
there's a
like
lot of like
that,
one of the stigmas that I ran into, you know, like I never talk about, you know, taking medication because here a lot of students abuse, you know, like especially like Adderall and Ritalin
Exactly.
in university for studying and stuff like that.
yeah.
You know,
So
I mean,
yeah.
I've heard people say that, well, hey, now you're taking that and now you have an advantage over the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've
that's
heard
why.
things all weird.
Yeah, I hear you, Kevin. I meant to say everything we provide as like the skill or learning or ADHD self-awareness. I didn't mean the medication. Thank you for clearing that up.
Maybe it's me who misunderstood. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure.
Because we, like, once you start ADHD coaching, it's always there. Medication is always there, and it's always repeated many times, that like medication is something that has to really happen in a specific way. And it's really, if it's a kid, it's their family's decision, or if it's an adult or young adult, it's really have to be personal. So that's a very medication is you have to be very careful about that. What I heard you say, Kevin, I've done a lot of researches on different approaches to ADHD in different cultures and in different living settings. I have to say, like, I know there are some schools, or in France is a good example, because they are really on the spot on saying like, well, ADHD, we can treat it in different way. They don't really say ADHD doesn't exist, but they mostly say like, we treat it in different way. And if it's a very understanding environment, good nutrition, and good understanding of self-awareness and freedom of the thinking, different learning abilities, so that really might help ADHD. And if it's that kind of school setting, or even a country setting, just like enjoy, because maybe it will be medication or different kind of like approaches might be less needed, because the kids or adults are already in big awareness of their own self and their own ADHD. What do you say, Dalya?
Eva, I'm going to say, even in different classrooms, you can see this difference. A teacher who is trained on executive functioning skills, who knows how to deal with different learning disabilities or abilities, even in different classrooms, you see this difference. Kids in a classroom with a teacher I just described, they don't come out as having ADHD. Somehow there are less and less cases in a classroom like that. And then whereas you go to another classroom where the teacher have their own executive functioning problems, therefore cannot execute executive functioning skills, and they cannot lead the kids that way, then there are so many more kids coming out of that classroom with ADHD and with executive functioning problems. And yeah, I mean, there are two sides to the coin. In France, they think they're dealing better with it, and who can know? I'm sure in some cases medication is needed and they're not getting it, but they are definitely dealing with it, like you said, with nutrition, with better approach, with more educating the teachers, and with a little more liberty. Education system, makes a whole lot of difference, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I know we've been talking a lot about a lot, and there are many subjects or titles we'd like to speak. Maybe we'll be hosting you in the future or several times, maybe, Dalya. I see. Okay, you have to pronounce your name to me again. Day.
Yeah, you guys are saying it right. Yeah, you guys are saying it right.
Okay.
Yeah. I have three quick things to point out. I guess we are kind of really talking about our experiences, but these are things that I guess people don't realize. Like I gave the example of my friend who is she's a nurse, so she knows the symptoms, but she doesn't know the little details, right? She doesn't know. Even telling her, yesterday, like I said, I was telling you guys that I was on the phone with her yesterday. I told her, now do you understand why, I'm late sometimes, and it's not that right? Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't mean that I don't care. That doesn't mean I'm careless. That doesn't mean I don't have respect for people's time. And she's like, no, I know you're a great friend. And, and then I told her, even empathy, I feel now, tell me guys if this is just me, but because I Googled it and I was like, just Googling, I guess, things about ADHD in general, just tips, I think it was, for managing ADHD. And by the way, there is a book. So I'm going to turn on my camera and then you guys can screenshot a book that my psychotherapist gave me for ADHD. I'll do that in a second. But anyways, I don't, oh my God, see, my ADHD kicked in. I don't know what I was talking about. What was I saying?
The book.
Yeah, about the book.
Before the book.
Your nurse friend.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Test.
Right.
Okay. Good. Good one, Kevin.
Sorry, thanks. Yeah. So, anyways, I told her, this is one of the things, like being late, and she said, so time management, is that an issue? And I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, that's why these not just medicine will help. For some people, maybe. And the question that someone had about, sorry, Ava, you mentioned, people without ADHD taking the medicine, because of course, what the medicine does. Yeah, it'll help them hyperfocus and stuff like that. But other things won't change for them. Things like this, they might be on time. They might be, very good with time management and stuff. So they might hyper-focus in that moment, like Dalya was saying. But when my cousin I have a cousin who has ADHD, and when he was very, very young, I just knew that he had ADHD. I just knew it. And my aunt, I told her, and she didn't want to accept it, like you had mentioned, right? And she didn't want to accept it, but she was, at the same time, she was being nice because I have it. So I could see the worry in her face. And I was like, but look at me now. Look at me now, getting good grades. Look at me now, right? I didn't have that. He has that chance, you know? And now, so then she didn't even want to discuss it. Like, and it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
You know, in my culture, there is a stigma. It's much less now, thanks to shows like, I guess, Dr. Phil or something. I don't know. But she didn't want to accept it. But then once he was diagnosed, my cousin, now they joke about it all the time. Whenever we're over their house or he's over our house, they joke about it all the time. So you go from something like, I don't even want to discuss it, and then you go to, ha ha ha, you guys are the same, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, this conversation reminds, I'm sure, Dalya, to you too, of our many classes at ADHD Coach Academy, how, like, you know, we make it real to understand the difference between the stigma or diagnosis of ADHD and all that. We have we're looking to see the book, which you found it helpful.
Oh yeah, the book. Let me turn on my camera.
Yes, please.
If you guys want to screenshot it. Wait, sorry, that's my ceiling. 1 second.
Okay, glasses. Huh, okay.
Yeah.
What's it called?
And actually, a little comment about did everyone get it?
Can you
Sure, I can.
Can you type it to the chat box for us too, please?
I can type it to the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, I can type it to the chat.
Thank you.
I was thinking, just the title itself, it reminds me of this. Yeah, no problem. There's something that has anybody here been, do they have to wear glasses or contacts? Anybody here?
Oh yeah, well, I'm wearing,
yeah.
Okay, so when you first wore glasses, wasn't it like, oh yes, I could see before, but oh my God, can I ever see now?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of like the ADHD thing. You know, you can focus on certain, you know, there's things, but once you have that diagnosis and then you're medicated, you're like, oh my God. And it's like seeing, you know, the little leaves in the trees moving instead of like a green bush. You know,
that's a great way to put it, Steve. Thank you. And I will be we even couldn't start on how to handle or what we want to talk about ADHD at home during COVID-19. So you really have to come back, Dalya, sooner. So we'll have to talk about that. But now we'll have to stop the recording. What would you like to add? Or, I mean, I will definitely be contacting you for another visit.
Sure.
How would you like to continue next session? Let's make it sure that you're coming back.
Well, yeah, definitely. I don't mind coming back. My pleasure. I would love to come back, and we can discuss how to deal with our challenges during the, you know, epidemic or anything, whatever. So, you know, being home and being ADHD, we could talk about that, and definitely. And before I go, I want to say, be compassionate with yourselves and with other ADDers in your life. And, you know, we're here for you. We're all together. It gets better day by day.
Let's share 1 or 2 words about how ADHD is good for us. Anybody who would like to speak? So can I go first? Yeah, 1 or 2 sentences on what we think about or how we appreciate. I mean, personally, I have ADHD and I appreciate it. And I say my ADHD taught me how to jump high and deep dive. And I appreciate that. Life is wonderful. Well, I was ready to say this, and I gave you time that you think something little positive about your ADHD. What would you like to say? A couple of sentences. Kevin.
Are you talking to me?
Oh,
well,
Kevin.
I'll just say
Kevin, go ahead.
all five of us, because iPad Eva is me. So yeah.
I guess like creativity and then being inquisitive, like just like just always trying to learn new and different things, and flexible. I find myself a lot more flexible than a lot of other people, like a lot of the work that I do.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Dee, would you like to add a couple of sentences about how you appreciate ADHD?
Yeah. I don't know if this is true for everybody with ADHD, but certainly, I mean, I don't know. I guess, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like kind of like what Kevin, you were saying, intuitive, were you saying?
Yeah.
I would say intuitive to
I would agree with that.
Like I don't know if this is an ADHD thing, but emotionally intelligent when it comes to like other people. Maybe not myself, but I don't know. I'm very. Is empathy a type of thing that's?
Of course.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I was so sad because actually the friend that I told you about that I was talking to, I was actually going to end our friendship because of a lot of things. Guess what? She, during the conversation, she just randomly said, thank you for calling me today because, other than, and then she mentioned a mutual friend, other than her, you're the only one who reaches out to me, and I'm not really, it's hard in this COVID time, and
and
that I like seeing
you.
people in person and stuff. And then I was like, oh God, and I was gonna, and then she, not only that, yeah, that too, but it's just like, so, okay, yeah, you're right. She got, like, it got to me, but at the same time, I wasn't feeling like, oh, it got to me. But when I actually felt emotional, so I talked with her, I made her laugh and everything like that. I feel a need to do that. Like, I feel like it's not that it's my responsibility, but I would feel like such a dick if I don't. And actually, maybe I don't even feel that. It's just something that I do. It's like, I have to. And after talking with her, I called a friend of mine who I don't know. I don't want to give too much because you're recording this because I don't know where it's going to end up.
Be careful.
Yeah. But then I called a friend. I called a mutual friend, and I was like, I was tearing up. I wasn't crying, but I was tearing up. And, she couldn't pick up. And she texted me and she's like, sorry, my family's still over. Is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah. I was just being emotional, but it's okay. I had a few tears in my eyes, but I didn't cry. It's okay. And what I was feeling in that moment was, I didn't tell her, but what I was feeling in the moment was absolutely guilty for even thinking that, hey, this is someone that I'm considering not having in my life anymore because this person takes a lot of negative energy out of me. Even though it's something that's good for me, I now feel guilty because this person said, thank you so much for being in my life, and thank you so much for calling me again and making sure that I'm okay.
Well, what you're saying is music to our ears as ADHD coaches, right, Dalya? Because I hear that we have to talk about a lot of things here. I don't know if, I'm sure you heard, Dalya, too, like these feeling of that guilt, actually, that you don't even have to deal with that too. So that could even go away. So that's
really
another, these are all the amazing, I think that's why we love our job so much as ADHD coaches. These are the amazing moments, aha moments in coaching experience with our clients when they can really understand, wow, there's another way, where I have to carry less karma, only my own karma. I don't have to carry my friends or family stuff with me. I don't
Right.
have to carry my background or cultural junk with me. I can be this
Right.
happy and wonderful and processing person who can deal with the truth. So yeah, we could go
Right.
for a very long hours, but I think we'll have to stop recording. Dalya, I'll ask. Thank you very much.
Actually,
Kevin.
Ava, you're right. Like, you will be back, right, Mrs.
Dalya.
Dalya?
Call me Dalya. I don't know why my name appears as
Oh,
Mrs.
sorry, Mrs.
Little kids calling me in school. No, definitely.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Oh,
this
hopefully
is
we
very
will see you
nice.
because I do have some questions. My cousin is going into high school,
Yeah.
and he has a lot of social problems. But
So yeah, we'll make sure.
yeah,
We'll make sure.
yeah.
And maybe I should just say this in Turkish. Dalya, kesinlikle geri gelmen gerekiyor. So that's another.
Definitely, I will be
So
coming.
we have improvement in both languages, and now I'm gonna let Dalya wrap up with her coaching perspective, and I'll be sharing some of the words that I took notes. I'll be making a TikTok video of these however I will make it. So we'll make sure ADHD is still in Online Rebels and it's live and it will be here. So Dalya, can we have your last words for today and for future?
Eva, thank you so much for having me. This has been great. And as I finish up, I just want to say, no worries around there. I just wanted to say that because of what they said. We are entitled to our feelings. I know guilt sometimes chases us, but we are. Anyways, it was wonderful. Thank you so much, Eva.
Thank you very much for joining us, friends. And today we started to discuss as ADHD at home during COVID-19. We couldn't even get there, which is very super common for an ADHD.
Imagine that.
So we are in good hands.
Yeah, no surprise.
This is what happens. You have to be flexible that plans are not working. Maybe that's why COVID-19 is our area of the field, because ADHDers who are able to really read their ADHD, they can really handle crisis super well. So we'll be talking about this, but I do have to really end this recording, friends. So thank you very much for joining us today, and bye.